Hello, and welcome to Talking Sense, a Pittsburgh Works Together interview series featuring our region's most influential leaders. We'll get their perspectives on jobs, the economy, and other topics vital to Pittsburgh's progress. I'm Doris Nagy, and on today's episode, I speak with Pennsylvania State Senator Gene Yaw. Senator Yaw speaks on the state of our electric grid, which makes daily life possible for every Pennsylvanian. We cover the challenges its suppliers face in keeping up with demand, the natural resources that power its production, and how we can ensure its continued efficiency. Many of these issues are also explored in Pittsburgh Works' newest report, the PJM Grid in Peril, available at pghworks.com. We hope you enjoy this insightful and informative discussion. Senator Yaw, it's so nice to meet you. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you became a senator?
Dumb luck. No. My background is, I guess I go all the way back. I grew up in very rural Pennsylvania. First generation or first person in my family to go to college. Actually didn't do very well in college at first. It took me a couple of starts and spent some time in the Army. Went back, graduated from, I started at Bucknell University, graduated from Lycoming College, and then went to law school at American University in Washington, D.C. Came back. I was working in D.C. and never intended to ever go back to the Williamsport or central Pennsylvania. And my dad told me one time, there's an opening for a clerk for the president judge. I applied for it. Make a long story short, I went back, clerk for the judge, joined a law firm, and I've been there ever since. And so until my predecessor in the Senate told me he was going to retire. And I had never been really interested in running for office, although I've been asked to do a lot. And I don't know, for some reason, being in the Senate piqued my interest.
Yeah, fantastic.
And that's how I got there.
Well, people don't give as much thought to how they get their electricity. They typically just think they flick on a switch and there it is. So what's happening to the electric grid, and why should people be a little more concerned about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. People don't think about it. And I've talked to PJM is the grid operator or the regional transmission operator for all of Pennsylvania. It actually, PJM is located in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, and it runs the grid for 13 states plus the District of Columbia. And I've told PJM they have managed to keep this together, and most people don't realize how close we've come several times to the grid actually failing. Here, a good example of what that means is what's going on in California right now. I've heard on the news there's rolling blackouts. And California, in their interesting way, they said, well, it's because of the heat. Well, if you generated enough electric power, you wouldn't have to worry about the heat. You could deal with it. And
Sure.
That's what I'm worried about. And I keep telling PJM, you could be your own worst enemy because you patch this together. And just like your original comment, most people don't have a clue what keeps the lights on and how they're kept on here. The biggest issue that we have is we're retiring thermal generation. There's only two ways to make electricity. Really complicated. Thermal and non-thermal. Thermal means anything where you can produce steam. And the reason that's important is because that's the type of power that you can call on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It doesn't matter whether the sun's shining, it doesn't matter whether the wind's blowing, it doesn't matter what the weather is or anything like that. We are retiring that type of operation, or those, a lot of them for environmental reasons, like mainly coal. And what we're not replacing it with a comparable backup or a comparable type of electric power. We have a lot of proposals out there to build a lot of solar arrays, but solar works maybe a couple hours a day,
Sure.
and only if the sun, at the middle of the night, solar is not very good. And that's the question I asked people is I said, just think about where's your power going to come from on a cold, calm winter night or on a calm, hot summer night? Where's it going to come from? It's not going to come from wind. It's not going to come from solar. So that's the issue that we face. And the way that the use of electricity and the demand for it is growing, there are some predictions out there that even in our area by as early as 2028, we could have a shortage where demand exceeds the supply. That's what bothers me. We're not addressing the problem. We're kind of like ignoring it. And when you look at the time that's needed to construct some of these facilities, and I have nothing against any. I think we need a really diverse energy portfolio. If you're looking at nuclear, it takes anywhere from 15 to 20 years to build one. And to my knowledge, I don't even think we have any plans on the books to construct a new nuclear power plant anywhere. It takes 4 to 6 years to build even a combined cycle gas-fired power plant, and we're just not doing it. We should have shovels in the ground working on this right now, and so where we're going to go, I don't know. But people like you and asking the questions and even trying to get the word out, that's a huge issue. Yeah. About a year ago, or a little over a year ago, I did a presentation to the PJM Board of Managers in Valley Forge. And we talked about it, and they asked me, what do you think it will take to get people's attention? And I said, well, probably, unfortunately, it's going to take a catastrophic event with a significant loss of life. And it's kind of sad to say, but that's probably what's going to happen. It'll be an extreme cold period where power is out. And when power goes out, just think of the medical problems or people with a medical condition where they rely on electricity for some device to run. That's what's going to happen. And we keep talking to people and saying we have to address this, and a lot of people just, we don't. Well, we'll have solar panels. Well, okay, that's fine. It's part of the mix, but it doesn't answer my 3 a.m. question.
Right, and they think they'll just flip the switch and the electricity will be there. And we do generate a lot of electricity in Pennsylvania. How does our state fit into the picture, and how can we become a part of the solution, in your opinion?
How we fit into the picture is Pennsylvania produces about 1/3 of the electric generation capacity that goes into the grid. Just think about that. I mean, we supply electricity for, I forget how many, it's like 70 million people in the whole PJM. And I mean, it's huge. And what we've talked about, or I've talked about with PJM, is that what PJM does affects what happens in Pennsylvania. The flip side of that is also true. What Pennsylvania does affects what happens on their grid. My goal is I want Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania generators to maintain that position. I mean, it's a huge business. There's no question about it. I think in the Middle Atlantic region, it's fair to say that Pennsylvania is the engine that generates all the power for the economy in that entire grid area.
And this is a little bit more of a broad question, but what, in your opinion, can be done to address the challenges with the electric grid?
we need to start building right now. Give you an example. PJM, I think, is very, very conservative. They've said by, I think, 2030, they anticipate that in their grid area, there's going to be a retirement of about 40,000 megawatts of electricity. What's the plan to replace that? We have no plan. In addition to that, they're talking about within 10 years, there's going to be an increase in demand of about another 40,000 megawatts. Now, in my simplistic math, that's 80,000 shortfall that we need to address without anything else. Data centers are another huge problem. We can talk about that. That's a whole separate issue. But that 80,000 megawatts, just think about this. Most combined cycle, the average combined cycle gas-fired power plant produces somewhere around 1,000 megawatts. We should have 80 of those plants under construction right now. And if Pennsylvania wants to stay in their position of being somewhere between 25 and 30, a quarter and a third, we should have somewhere between, 10 or 15 of these under construction here in Pennsylvania. Do we have them? The answer is no. And there's no plans to do that. So that's the type of thing. I think that what we need to do is we really need to sit down and have a longer range plan to say, if we're going to avoid, we're headed to a cliff. And, do we do something or are we just going to run over it?
Sure. And if people want to learn more about these issues and how they can become a part of the solution, what's the best way people can become more informed?
Well, pay attention to programs like this, and I mean, public information. How do you get out the word? Get out the word. We try. We try. In my newsletter that we send out every chance I get to talk to reporters, news articles we've written, op-ed pieces, that type of thing. People just need to be educated about what's really gone on and what the demand is for electricity and what the supply is.
Well, Senator, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for a great conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today on another episode of Talking Sense. If you'd like to learn more about the electric grid, visit pghworks.com.